Good evening, America. Welcome to The Outlook. I'm your host, James Quare. We are here with Bob Mike, an expert on the 9/11 tragedy. We have a lot to talk about, Bob, so let's start with what happened before 9/11, what led to the attacks. Well, James, there are a number of theories out there about the root causes of the attacks on 9/11. Some, like the theory that the U.S. attacked itself, are completely unfounded. There are several more plausible explanations that can be attributed to the 9/11 tragedy. Most experts believe that the root cause of 9/11 can be traced to Osama bin Laden's view of U.S. foreign policy, specifically the partnership between the U.S. and Israel. Bin Laden and his al-Qaeda organization is opposed to the recognition and support of an Israeli state and wanted to see the U.S. back away from its support of Israel. Now, Bin Laden witnessed the United States retreat from a number of attacks over the years, like the 1983 attack in Lebanon and the 1993 attack in Somalia. His flawed logic told him that if he attacked the U.S. on our own soil, we would probably retreat from our staunch support of Israel and subsequently modify our foreign policy. So, in essence, Bin Laden's goal was to change U.S. foreign policy through force. So, Mike, you were saying that Bin Laden's desire to influence U.S. foreign policy led to the 9/11 attacks? Yes, James, that's exactly what I am saying. Bin Laden didn't get what he wanted, though. What do you mean, Bob? The 9/11 attacks brought about change here in the U.S., but not the kind of change Bin Laden and al-Qaeda were hoping for. Rather than become defeated, the United States government took a stand by passing the Patriot Act. This act expanded the government's authority to search out, detain, and question any suspected terrorists. This kind of sweeping federal authority was new. The government had never gone to such lengths before to protect its citizenry from terrorist groups. How did the American public react to the attacks and the subsequent legislation? With regard to the attacks, the American public united together to support the firefighters, police officers, families, and others directly affected by the attacks. They held bake sales, concerts, and the like to raise funds to help in the recovery effort. Sales of American flags soared. Citizens hadn't been that united since the World War II effort. With regard to the Patriot Act, well, U.S. citizens were not so united. Some felt that the legislation was necessary to protect us from terrorists. Others felt that the Patriot Act was too sweeping and gave the U.S. government too much power. Whatever your beliefs, it is true that we haven't been attacked again, perhaps because of the Patriot Act, perhaps because of better communication between government agencies like the FBI and the CIA, perhaps because of both. Americans may not always agree with each other, but we do support each other through times of crisis. How have things changed in the United States in the 10 years since 9/11? Things have changed considerably over the last 10 years. We have upgraded our national security systems and airports have enacted higher standards for passenger and flight safety. Through the Patriot Act, we have detained and deported a number of suspected terrorists. There are, however, still wars, disputes, and protests. Americans, although united in wanting us to be safe, are divided over our participation in the Afghanistan and Iraqi wars and the housing of detainees at Guantanamo Bay. We remain allied with Israel. Further, we are still actively looking for Osama bin Laden. So, do you think if 9/11 had never happened, would the world be a more peaceful place? That's very hard to say. I do believe that 9/11 was a wake-up call for us in the U.S. We now know that it is possible for us to be attacked on our own soil, and I think that awareness has caused us to be more vigilant. And I think some people have become less tolerant of Islam here in the U.S. while others recognize that a few radicals do not speak for all Muslims. Thank you, Bob, for being part of The Outlook. I appreciate your time. You're welcome, James. Glad to have been here. We will be back with weather and sports after the break.